Yo! Matt Yari here, coming at ya with that hot shit. So, I just got a call from a jeweler. So, for those of you who don't know, I was planning to get married to this girl, like 2 years ago, and then that fell apart. And I left this ring for consignment. And they finally sold it, so I'm about to go grab the check. So that's good. Gonna get that as a little thing off my mind, you know? We all have all these things festering in our head. All these books that you should have read, and online courses, and we don't get them done. And then they take mental bandwidth. You know, your brain doesn't forget about these things, so finally, I'll be able to check this thing off and put a little bit of that money back in my fucking bank account. Lost a couple $100 on it, but that doesn't matter. I'm just excited to be done with this shit. So yeah, what does that lead me into? Do I have any other depth of analysis? Maybe optimistically, this is symbolic. If it has any spiritual symbolism to, if this is a sign from God, hopefully it means it's the end of that chapter. You know, I've still been kind of holding on to this weight of that very painful event that happened in my life. You know, I've been holding on to a lot of self-judgment. And hopefully this means that I have moved on. You know, if you believe in that shit, if you believe that these things have a greater spiritual implication of the grand plan, I don't know. At least that's sort of how I'm choosing to interpret it. Because, you know, up until now, and as time went on, you know, I would kind of like, it would happen less and less, but I would still, again, think about this failed relationship. It was the first time I bought a ring for a girl. And it was actually the first time that it was the first time I told a girl that I loved her. Before it was too late, if that makes sense. You know? It's not the first time I told any girlfriend that I loved her, that I loved them. But my timing was always off. This was the first girl that I really, as soon as I felt like I was ready to say it, I said it. And, you know, these things happen. And it showed me a lot about myself. You know, I had to self-reflect and really think about, you know, why did that happen? And more importantly, what am I going to do about it? And I'm trying to embrace a mindset, especially working with some mentors, where and it makes a lot of sense that you should spend most of your time focusing on the future. You should spend pretty much all your time thinking about the future that you want and what you're doing to create it. And for me personally, you know, I have a long-standing habit of dwelling on the past. I've talked about it in other videos. that I'm now starting to recognize that that is, a form of addiction, right? Because you think about the past, even painful memories, and they trigger an emotional response. And that process is addictive. And so the anger that I would feel thinking about this girl, it would trigger all these emotions, and I was getting high on that. And I noticed I started doing that less. And maybe that's why the ring sold, if you believe in a greater plan or orchestration of whatever the fuck is going on in this world. All right, they're about to close in 10 minutes, so I got to pick up my check. Thanks for listening.